The city lights twinkled like scattered diamonds, but David barely noticed them. His world was much smaller, much cozier, and currently filled with the soft snores of his 5-year-old son, Leo. David leaned against the worn doorframe of Leo's room, a tired smile playing on his lips. Leo was a sweet boy, all bright eyes and boundless energy, even in sleep. He was David's sun, moon, and stars, and the reason David pushed himself every single day. Being a single dad wasn't easy. David worked 2 jobs, one at a local diner, flipping burgers and wiping down counters, and another delivering packages in the evenings. The hours were long, the pay was never quite enough, and sleep felt like a distant luxury. Sometimes, the weight of it all felt heavy on his shoulders, like a backpack filled with bricks. He often found himself staring at the ceiling late at night, wondering how he would pay for Leo's new school shoes or fix the leaky faucet in their tiny apartment. Still, David never let Leo see his worries. For Leo, David was strong, funny, and always there. They shared silly jokes, read adventure books before bed, and made the best peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the whole wide world. David knew that love was the most important thing he could give his son, and he poured every ounce of his heart into making sure Leo felt safe and cherished. Even though he was bone-weary, a quiet strength resided in David, fueled by his love for Leo. David's morning routine was a well-oiled machine of breakfast cereal, hurried goodbyes, and a dash to his first job. But afternoons were different. That's when Leo, with his bright imagination, often found himself at the small community park, just a block away from the diner where David worked. The park wasn't fancy, just a sandbox, a swing set, and a slide that squeaked a little too loudly. But for Leo, it was a kingdom waiting to be explored. While David flipped burgers and served coffee, he kept a watchful eye on the park through the diner's big front window. He worried about Leo playing alone, but it was the best he could. Donnerstag Leo, however, didn't seem to min distance. He was a master of make-believe. One day, the sandbox was a desert island, and he was a brave explorer digging for treasure. The next, the swings were soaring rockets, taking him to the moon and back. His small, often smudged face would be alight with the thrill of his own adventures. He'd talk to the squirrels, making up funny conversations, or spent long moments watching the clouds drift by, imagining them as friendly dragons or fluffy sheep. Sometimes, older kids would come to the park, but Leo mostly kept to himself, happy in his own world of stories and games. David would wave to him from the diner window, and Leo would wave back, a small, independent figure in the bustling park. It broke David's heart a little that Leo had to entertain himself so much, but he knew Leo was strong and clever, always finding joy in the simple things. One sunny afternoon, as Leo was busy building an elaborate sandcastle, a new figure appeared on the edge of the park. She was a woman, dressed in clothes that looked like they belonged in a fancy magazine, a sleek, dark dress and shiny shoes that clicked softly on the pavement. She wore sunglasses that hid her eyes, making her face a mystery. She didn't sit on a park bench like others, nor did she have a child with her. Instead, she stood near a large oak tree, pretending to read a book, but her gaze kept drifting towards the playground. She watched David through the diner window, noting how he'd glance up every few minutes, a worried crease between his brows, before returning to his work. Then her eyes would follow Leo, observing his solo games. She saw him transform the sandbox into a pirate ship, heard his tiny, joyful shouts as he battled imaginary sea monsters. She noticed how he carefully shared a piece of his apple with a persistent squirrel, his small act of kindness unnoticed by anyone else. The woman seemed to blend into the background, almost like a shadow. No one paid her much mindestance. David was too busy, and Leo was too lost in his own world. But she was there, day after day, for a short while, sometimes sipping coffee from a small cup, sometimes just standing still. She wasn't just looking, she was studying, taking in every small detail of their lives. Her expression remained calm and unreadable behind her dark glasses, but a quiet thoughtfulness settled upon her as she watched the loving bond between the busy father and his imaginative son. One warm Tuesday, the mysterious woman, Sarah, had forgotten her dark sunglasses. Her eyes, a kind hazel, were clearly visible as she watched Leo construct a magnificent fort from fallen branches. He was usually so focused, so lost in his world, that he rarely noticed anyone. But today, something was different. Perhaps it was the sun glinting off Sarah's shiny watch, or maybe the soft hum of a song she was quietly whistling. Leo looked up from his fort, his bright eyes scanning the pack. His gaze landed on Sarah, who, for a moment, forgot to pretend to read her book. A small, gentle smile played on her lips as she watched him. It was this smile, soft and welcoming, that seemed to draw Leo in like a magnet. He paused his fort building, wiped a smudge of dirt from his cheek, and slowly walked towards her. Sarah felt a little flutter in her chest. No one usually approached her like this, especially not a small child. She lowered her book, her smile widening just a tiny bit. Leo stopped a few feet away, his head tilted, his curious eyes fixed on her. He didn't seem shy or afraid. After a moment of quiet thought, a sweet, clear voice broke the peaceful silence. "Hello," Leo said, then, with a hopeful glint in his eyes, "are you my mommy for a day?" Sarah's smile froze for a moment, then softened even more. The words hung in the air, unexpected and innocent. She didn't know what to say. The small boy, with his dirt-smudged face and bright, trusting gaze, had just asked her the most surprising question she'd heard in years. Sarah, taken aback by Leo's sweet question, felt a warmth spread through her chest. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at her with such pure, innocent hope. A real smile, one that reached her eyes, bloomed on her face. "Mommy for a day," she repeated softly, and then, with a playful nod, "I suppose I could be." "What does a mommy for a day do?" Leo's face lit up, his earlier shyness completely gone. He grabbed her hand, his small fingers surprisingly firm. "You help me build my fort. And we can find a magic stone," he declared, pulling her towards his half-finished masterpiece. Sarah, usually focused on board meetings and big company plans, found herself giggling as Leo explained the rules of his imaginary kingdom. She helped him stack branches, pretending to be a giant lifting heavy logs, and listened intently as he described the powers of the magic stone they eventually found, a smooth, gray pebble. From the diner window, David saw Leo with the elegant woman. A flicker of concern crossed his face, but then he saw Leo's joyful laughter and the woman's kind, engaged expression. She wasn't just tolerating Leo, she was truly playing with him. David watched as she listened patiently to Leo's endless stories, her gaze soft and full of genuine interest. He saw her gently help Leo up when he stumbled, and share a small, wrapped snack from her bag, which Leo accepted with a happy grin. A strange feeling of relief, mixed with a little curiosity, settled in David's heart. He was grateful for her unexpected kindness to his son. When David's shift ended, he walked over to the park to pick up Leo. Leo ran towards him, a huge grin on his face, chattering excitedly about the magic stone and the fort he had built with his mommy for a day. David smiled, ruffling Leo's hair, then turned to the woman. She stood gracefully, her elegant clothes seeming a little out of place next to the swings and slides. "Thank you," David said, a little awkwardly. "For playing with Leo. He really enjoyed himself." Sarah offered a polite, gentle smile. "It was my pleasure. Leo is a wonderful boy." Her voice was soft, yet held a clear, confident tone. David felt a flicker of confusion. Who was this woman? She dressed like someone important, yet she spent her afternoon playing in the dirt with his son. He noticed her expensive-looking handbag and the subtle gleam of a diamond on her finger. She didn't look like any of the other parents or nannies who usually came to the park. Despite his confusion, a wave of pure gratitude washed over him. It wasn't often that someone showed such genuine kindness to Leo, especially a stranger. He didn't know that the woman, Sarah, was actually the CEO of a huge, well-known company, one that built towering skyscrapers across the city. He just saw a kind face, a gentle spirit, and a person who had made his son's afternoon brighter. He simply nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Well, thank you again. We should get going. Come on, champion." He took Leo's hand, and with a final thankful glance at Sarah, they walked away, leaving her standing alone by the oak tree. After David and Leo left, Sarah didn't immediately hurry away. She stood for a moment, watching them disappear down the street, a thoughtful look on her face. Her world was usually filled with towering office buildings, important meetings, and complex business deals. As the CEO of Sterling Holdings, a giant company that shaped city skylines, her days were a blur of power and precision. Yet, watching David and Leo, something inside her had shifted. Their life was so different from her own. Simple. Full of small, everyday moments of kindness and connection. She had seen David's tired but loving eyes, always keeping watch over his son. She had seen Leo's bright, trusting smile, even when playing by himself. There was a quiet strength in their bond, a deep, unspoken love that shone brighter than any diamond on her finger. Zara, despite her success and wealth, felt a pang in her heart. Her own life, while grand in scale, often felt empty in small ways. She had all the things money could buy, but she lacked the simple, heartfelt connections she had just witnessed. The way David ruffled Leo's hair, the way Leo instinctively reached for his father's hand, these were treasures money couldn't buy. She was secretly touched by their kindness to each other, by the easy way they navigated their struggles with love as their guide. It made her wonder about the true meaning of richness. Later that evening, in her grand penthouse apartment high above the city, Sarah sat alone, a half-eaten gourmet meal growing cold on the table. The view was amazing, a sparkling carpet of light stretching to the horizon, but she barely saw it. Her mind was still at the park, with a little boy and his hard-working father. Her life was filled with expensive things, fancy dinners, and important people, but it often felt very quiet, very empty. She had built an empire with her own hands, working tirelessly for years. She had power, respect, and more money than she could ever spend. Yet, at the end of each long day, there was no one waiting for her. No cheerful "Hello, Mommy," no silly stories about magic stones, no gentle hand to hold. Her parents had passed away years ago, and she had never married or had children, always putting her career first. Now, as she sat in her silent apartment, the deep ache of loneliness was a familiar companion. She longed for the kind of simple, loving connection she'd witnessed between David and Leo. A family. Not the kind that shared a last name on a business card, but the kind that shared laughter, worries, and a warm hug. The idea of having someone depend on her, someone to cherish and protect, filled her with a bittersweet longing. She realized that for all her success, a piece of her heart felt deeply, truly alone. The next afternoon, David looked out the diner window, half expecting the elegant woman not to be there. But there she was, standing near the oak tree, a small smile on her face as Leo spotted her and waved excitedly. From that day on, Mommy for a Day became a sweet, regular part of Leo's afternoons. Sarah would arrive just as Leo settled into his play, usually dressed in the same stylish, but comfortable, clothes. She would listen to his elaborate stories, cheering him on as he scaled the playground equipment, or pretending to be a scared villager when he was a brave knight. She often brought small, thoughtful things, a colorful drawing pad and crayons one day, a little bag of fancy animal crackers the next. Leo's eyes would sparkle with delight, and his laughter echoed through the park more often than before. David, watching from the diner, noticed the change in Leo. His son seemed even happier, his imagination soaring with a playmate who truly listened. The woman, whose name David still didn't know, brought a special kind of warmth and fun into Leo's life. She didn't hover or try to take over, she simply joined in, adding to Leo's joy. David felt a quiet sense of relief. It was hard to be everything for Leo all the time, and this kind stranger was giving his son something precious, focused, gentle attention. He often caught her looking towards the diner with a soft, knowing glance, and he'd offer a small, grateful nod in return. As the days turned into weeks, David found himself looking forward to seeing the elegant woman at the park almost as much as Leo did. He still didn't know her name, but Leo had happily told him she liked to be called Mommy for a day. David would often catch her eye from the diner window, and a small, shared smile would pass between them, a silent thank you from him, a gentle acknowledgement from her. He admired her quiet kindness, the way she treated Leo with such genuine care. She wasn't loud or flashy, her gentle nature was like a soft blanket of comfort. David noticed how she always made sure Leo was safe, how she listened intently to his made-up stories, and how her laughter was a light, happy sound. It was clear she truly enjoyed spending time with his son. Sometimes, when David went to pick up Leo, they would exchange a few more words. He learnt she liked coffee black and that she had a very calm way about her. He never asked about her job or where she lived, respecting her quiet presence. He just felt a growing sense of ease and a strange, comforting connection to her. It was a connection built on shared glances and the simple joy she brought to Leo. David didn't know anything about her powerful job or the secrets she held. He only saw the gentle woman who made his son happy, and in doing so, brought a little light into his own busy, often lonely, world. While David only saw a kind stranger, Sarah saw so much more. From her quiet spot, or while playing with Leo, she observed David's life with a keen eye. She watched him tirelessly work at the diner, his movements quick and efficient, his uniform sometimes stained with coffee or grease. She saw him rush out during his break to check on Leo, a quick wave and a bright smile always for his son. It was clear that every single thing David did was for Leo. She noticed the worn edges of his jacket, the faint lines of tiredness around his eyes that even his warm smile couldn't hide. She understood that he wasn't just working hard, he was working extraordinarily hard, sacrificing his own comfort and rest to give Leo a good life. It wasn't about fancy toys or big houses, it was about food on the table, a safe home, and a father's unwavering love. Zara, who was used to seeing people driven by money and power, found herself deeply impressed by David's simple, honest devotion. He didn't complain, didn't ask for help, he just kept going, fueled by a love as strong as any she had ever seen. His quiet strength, his unwavering commitment to his son, made her admire him greatly. She saw not a struggling man, but a hero, a man of incredible character. The more she observed, the more she respected him, and the more her admiration grew into something warmer, something more personal. Sarah's quiet admiration for David held a deeper, more urgent reason. The truth was, her elegant clothes and powerful job hid a big secret: she was very sick. For months, she had been fighting a serious illness, and her doctors had told her she needed a bone marrow transplant to get better. It was a life-saving procedure, but finding a perfect match was incredibly hard, like finding a needle in a haystack. She had searched all over the world, using her wealth and connections to find a donor, but no one was a perfect fit. Time was running out, and Sarah often felt scared. Even though she never showed it, this hidden battle was the real reason for her occasional moments of deep loneliness and her longing for a different kind of life. Then, a few weeks ago, her medical team had called with astonishing news. They had found a perfect match. A rare, 1 in a million compatibility. The donor was someone who had registered years ago at a local health drive, someone whose information had just been processed. When Sarah's assistant, always efficient, brought her the donor's file, Sarah's heart almost stopped. The name on the file was David. The kind, hard-working single dad from the diner, the father of Leo, Mommy for a day playmate. It was an unbelievable twist of fate, a secret that now tied her life to his in a way neither of them could have imagined. The discovery of David as her bone marrow match wasn't just a miracle. It was a result of Sarah's assistant, Evelyn, working tirelessly behind the scenes. Evelyn was a whirlwind of efficiency, a person who could find anything and anyone. When Sarah's doctors needed to broaden their search for a donor, Evelyn had contacted every bone marrow registry and health organization she could think of, no matter how small or local. Months ago, a small community health drive had been held near David's apartment. David, always willing to help, and simply wanting to do a good deed, had stopped by during a rare free afternoon. He had filled out forms, given a small blood sample, and quickly forgotten about it. He never imagined that this simple act of kindness, this small moment of volunteering, would one day connect him to someone so powerfully. Evelyn's team had dug deep into those records, sifting through thousands of potential donors. When David's sample showed up as a match, it was a moment of shock and relief for Sarah and her medical team. Evelyn then, following strict privacy rules, had gathered more information about the anonymous donor, confirming the perfect match. She presented the file to Sarah, expecting joy and relief. Instead, Sarah stared at the name David Miller on the page, the same David she had been watching at the park, the one whose son called her mommy for a day. The coincidence was so huge, so unbelievable, it felt like a twist from a storybook. The knowledge that David was her perfect match brought Sarah both immense hope and a new, heavy worry. How could she tell him? Every time she thought about it, a knot tightened in her stomach. She imagined his face, first surprised, then confused, then perhaps angry. He knew her only as Leo's mommy for a day, a kind stranger at the park. How would he react when he learned she was a powerful CEO, and that her recent kindness might seem like a calculated move to get what she needed? Sarah paced her luxurious office late into the night, the city lights below a blur. She felt trapped. If she told him everything at once, he might think she had befriended Leo and observed their family with a hidden agenda. He might feel used, like she only cared about his bone marrow, not about him or Leo. The thought of hurting David, of making him feel like a means to an end, was unbearable. She genuinely admired him, and Leo had truly brought joy into her lonely life. She practiced different speeches in her head, but none felt right. Should she start by revealing her identity? Or her illness? Or the shocking coincidence of their match? Each path felt like it could lead to misunderstanding and distrust. Zara, who usually faced business challenges with fearless determination, felt truly lost. This wasn't about numbers or deals, it was about human hearts, and the fear of breaking the fragile connection she had started to build with David and his son. One dreary morning, the usual happy sounds from Leo's room were replaced by a weak cough. David rushed in to find Leo pale, his forehead hot to the touch. The little boy, usually full of boundless energy, lay listlessly in bed, his bright eyes dull with sickness. David's heart sank, a cold fear gripping him. He immediately called off work, his two jobs suddenly seeming unimportant compared to his son's health. He tried everything he knew, cool cloths, warm soup, gentle stories. But Leo only grew weaker, his cough turning into a wheeze. As the hours passed, David felt a crushing helplessness. He was a strong man, capable of fixing almost anything, but he couldn't fix this. He held Leo's small hand, his own trembling slightly. The thought of his son being seriously ill, and his inability to make it better, was a pain deeper than any tiredness or financial worry he had ever known. He took Leo to the small local clinic, waiting anxiously for the doctor's words. The doctor said it was a bad chest infection, needing strong medicine and careful watching. David listened, his mind racing with worries about the cost of medicine, the time he'd miss from work, and most of all, the fear for Leo's little body fighting such a big sickness. He felt truly alone, heartbroken, and powerless to protect the most precious person in his life. The moment Sarah heard about Leo's sickness, her hesitation about revealing her identity vanished. Her worry for the little boy overshadowed everything else. She couldn't stand by and watch David struggle alone. While David was sitting anxiously at Leo's bedside, a phone call came through. It was the clinic, telling him that Leo was being moved to the city's best children's hospital. Not only that, but a top specialist was already waiting, and all the medical bills would be taken care of. David was completely confused. How could this be happening? He had no insurance for such a fancy hospital. He asked who was behind it, but the nurse simply said, a kind benefactor who wishes to remain private. Yet, David couldn't shake the feeling that it was connected to the elegant woman from the park. Within hours, Leo was in a bright, clean room, receiving excellent care. Doctors and nurses moved with quiet efficiency, and David felt a huge weight lift from his shoulders. He still didn't understand who had done this, but he felt an overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude. Sarah, meanwhile, watched from a distance, pulling strings, making calls, ensuring Leo received nothing but the very best. She used her power and connections not for business, but for the little boy who called her mommy for a day. This indirect act of kindness was her way of showing David that she cared deeply, even before she could tell him her big secret. Her actions, though hidden, subtly revealed the vast reach of her power. As Leo started to get better in the fancy hospital room, David's mind kept going back to the mystery. Who was this kind benefactor who had stepped in so powerfully? He thought about the elegant woman from the park, Mommy, for a day. Her expensive clothes, her calm but strong way of speaking, the way she seemed to know things without being told. It all started to click into place. He remembered the first time he saw her, standing quietly by the oak tree, watching. He remembered her gentle smile, the way she listened to Leo, and the thoughtful little gifts she brought. Now, connecting it to Leo being moved to the best hospital, David couldn't shake the feeling. It was too big of a coincidence. No ordinary stranger could arrange such things. This wasn't just a kind woman, this was someone with serious influence, someone with power. David felt a mix of awe and a little bit of unease. He had grown to trust her, to feel a quiet connection. But if she was so powerful, why was she hiding it? Why pretend to be just a regular person at the park? He looked at Leo, sleeping peacefully, his breathing much easier now. He was grateful, truly, for whatever she had done. But a seed of suspicion had been planted. There was definitely more to Mommy for a day than met the eye, and David knew he needed to find out what it was. With Leo now stable and getting better, Sarah knew she couldn't wait any longer. The time for hiding was over. David's quiet questions in his eyes, his grateful but confused glances, told her he was starting to piece things together. She had to be honest, no matter how hard it was. One afternoon, after Leo had fallen asleep in his hospital bed, Sarah found David in the quiet waiting area. She took a deep breath, her heart beating a little faster than usual. David, she began, her voice soft but steady. We need to talk. About everything. David looked up, his face tired but attentive. He nodded slowly, as if he had been expecting this conversation. Sarah sat across from him, looking him straight in the eye. My name is Sarah Sterling, she started, revealing her true identity first. I'm the CEO of Sterling Holdings. She saw a flicker of surprise in his eyes, but he remained quiet, listening. Then, she shared her biggest secret, the one that had kept her company in her lonely penthouse. I'm sick, David. I have a serious illness, and I need a bone marrow transplant to live. Her voice wavered slightly, but she pushed through. She explained her long search for a donor, the urgent need for a match, and the incredible, almost unbelievable way that David's name had appeared on her medical file. She told him about her assistant finding his records from a health drive he'd joined months ago. The truth, raw and heavy, was finally out in the open. David listened to Sarah's words, his mind trying to catch up. Sarah Sterling, CEO of Sterling Holdings? The woman who built skyscrapers, was the same person who played hide-and-seek with Leo and found magic stones? It was a lot to take in. He felt a wave of shock, then a little sting of hurt. All this time, she had been watching them, hiding her true self. It felt like a trick, a secret kept close while he had been open and trusting. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the swirling feelings inside him. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice low, a hint of pain in it. Why pretend to be someone else? Sarah looked down for a moment, then met his gaze, her eyes full of a sadness he hadn't seen before. "I was scared, David," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "Scared you'd feel used, that my kindness would seem fake once you knew about my illness and the match. I genuinely care about Leo, and I truly admired you. I didn't want to ruin that." As she spoke, David saw not just the powerful CEO, but a vulnerable woman, afraid and alone. He saw the genuine fear in her eyes, the worry that her true intentions would be misunderstood. He understood. He remembered his own fears, his own struggles to protect Leo. He knew what it felt like to hide your worries, to put on a brave face. The hurt didn't completely disappear, but it lessened, replaced by a growing understanding of her difficult situation. After a quiet moment, David looked at Sarah, the anger fading, replaced by a deep concern. "So, you're sick," he said softly. "What kind of illness? What does a bone marrow transplant mean?" Sarah explained everything in simple words, no fancy medical terms. She told him about her blood disorder, how her body wasn't making healthy blood cells, and how the transplant was her only real chance to get better, to live. She spoke about the long, difficult search for a donor, how rare it was to find a perfect match, and the fear she had carried for so long. Then, she delivered the final, most surprising part of her secret. "And David," she said, her voice a little shaky, "when my team finally found a perfect match, it was you. You are my perfect match." David stared at her, his jaw dropping slightly. Him? The burger flipper, the package delivery guy, the single dad struggling to pay bills, was the one person who could save this powerful CEO's life? It was unbelievable. He remembered the health drive, a blurry afternoon months ago where he had simply signed up to help others. He hadn't thought about it since. Now, that small, forgotten act had come back in the most amazing, life-changing way. He looked at Sarah, truly seeing her for the first time, not just as a kind woman, or a powerful CEO, but as a person whose life now rested, in part, in his hands. David needed a moment to let all the incredible news sink in. He walked away from Sarah for a bit, pacing the hospital hallway, his mind buzzing. His mommy for a day was a CEO, a sick woman, and he was her only hope. It was like a story from a book. He thought about Leo, about how happy Sarah made him. He thought about Sarah's fear, her brave confession, and the deep sadness in her eyes when she spoke of her illness. He also thought about his growing feelings for her. That quiet connection he had felt, the admiration for her gentle spirit, it wasn't just about Leo anymore. He saw beyond her wealth and her power, seeing the lonely, vulnerable person beneath. His heart, which had been so focused on Leo for so long, felt a new kind of pull. He couldn't ignore it. He returned to Sarah, who was still sitting quietly, looking small and fragile in the big waiting room. He sat beside her, his decision firm. "I'll help you, Sarah," he said, his voice gentle but steady. "I'll do the transplant." A wave of relief washed over Sarah's face, making her eyes shine with unshed tears. David continued, "It's not just about being a match. It's about everything. About Leo, and the kindness you've shown him. And about you." His words were simple, honest, and filled with a warmth that reached straight into Sarah's heart. The day of the transplant arrived, filled with a mix of fear and hope. David, a little nervous but firm in his decision, went through the procedure to donate his bone marrow. Sarah, weak but ready, waited for the life-saving gift. Both surgeries went smoothly, a great relief to everyone involved. Slowly, carefully, Sarah began her journey of recovery. The first few days were hard, but with each passing hour, she felt a little stronger, a little more hopeful. She knew she owed her life to David. When she was well enough for visitors, David came, bringing Leo with him. Seeing Leo's bright, healthy face, and David's kind, tired smile, filled Sarah with a gratitude deeper than she had ever known. "Thank you, David," she whispered, her voice still a little weak but full of emotion. You saved my life. David just smiled, a warmth in his eyes. You helped save Leo, Zara. We're even. He didn't want any praise or reward, seeing her slowly getting better was enough. Leo, still a little unsure why Mommy for a day was in a hospital bed, carefully drew her a picture of a magic fort. Sarah held the drawing close, a tear slipping down her cheek. It wasn't just her body that was healing, her heart, too, felt like it was finally finding its way home. She was alive, and she was so thankful for David, for Leo, and for this unexpected second chance at life and family. As Sarah grew stronger, a new idea sparked in her mindestens. She looked at David, still juggling his 2 jobs and the hospital visits, his shoulders still carrying a heavy load. She knew she couldn't just thank him with words, she wanted to give him the chance he truly deserved. One afternoon, sitting in her bright hospital room, with David by her side, Sarah spoke, her voice clear and strong once more. David, I know you said we're even, but I want to do more. I want to offer you a job at Sterling Holdings. David's eyes widened in surprise. A job? At your company? What would I do? He asked, completely taken aback. He was a diner cook and a delivery driver, not a businessman. Sarah smiled. I've watched you, David. I've seen your dedication, your kindness, your incredible work ethic. You have a heart of gold and a strength that's rare. We can find a role that fits you, one where you can learn and grow. A job that gives you stable hours, good pay, and a future for you and Leo. She wasn't offering charity, she was offering an opportunity, believing in his potential. This wasn't just about giving David money, it was about giving him a better life, a chance to escape the endless struggle, to spend more time with Leo, and to build a future free from constant worry. It was her way of truly showing her gratitude, and an invitation for him to step into a world of new possibilities. David, for the first time in a long time, felt a real sense of hope blooming in his chest. With Sarah on the path to full health and David starting his new, promising job at Sterling Holdings, their lives began to weave together in a beautiful, unexpected way. The days of secrets and hidden identities were gone. Sarah was no longer just Mommy for a day to Leo, she was Sarah, a dear friend who often joined them for park adventures, now openly. David and Sarah spent more time together, talking, laughing, and getting to know each other without any walls between them. David saw Sarah's amazing mind at work, her fairness, and her deep care for her company and its people. Sarah saw David's natural wisdom, his gentle strength, and how much he loved being a dad. Their shared experiences, the big secret, and the kindness they had shown each other, built a strong bridge between them. Leo, always happy, loved having Sarah around. She was still his special playmate, but now she was also someone who shared meals with them, and sometimes even helped him with his homework. They started to look like a real family, not by blood, but by heart. They went to the park, not just for Leo to play alone, but for all 3 of them to share happy moments. The apartment David and Leo lived in felt brighter, filled with more laughter and less worry. Sarah's grand penthouse, once so empty, now welcomed the warmth of their new connections. Life for David, Zara, and Leo had blossomed into something truly special. David thrived in his new job, learning quickly and showing the same dedication he always had. He no longer worried about every bill, and he had more time to spend with Leo, helping him with homework or building grander forts at the park. Zara, fully recovered and stronger than ever, found immense joy in the warmth of her new, unconventional family. Her lonely penthouse now often echoed with Leo's laughter and David's gentle voice. She discovered a happiness in sharing simple moments, cooking dinner together, watching movies, or just sitting quietly, knowing she was truly connected. Leo, a happy and healthy boy, had 2 amazing people who loved him dearly. Sarah wasn't just Mommy for a day anymore, she was a beloved part of their everyday life, a kind presence who filled their home with extra love. David and Sarah's bond had grown deep and strong, built on honesty, shared challenges, and a mutual admiration that had blossomed into true affection. They had found each other through a strange twist of fate, a hidden illness, and a little boy's innocent wish. Their story was a testament to kindness, courage, and the unexpected ways family can form. They faced their future together, hand in hand, a happy, healthy trio, ready for whatever adventures life had in store.